Good afternoon, and welcome to True Encounters. I'm your host, Marvin Allen. Well, tonight I was going to have a guest on, but when I talked to the grandfather said that the little girl didn't want to come on and share her encounters because she was scared and she's still having nightmares about this cryptid that she have seen. Now, mind you, when I tell this encounter, her encounters happened over a period of time. So she's seen this cryptid more than one time. Now, mind you, this little girl stays with her grandfather. Her mother was called back to duty, so she had to leave. So the grandfather was keeping her. So I was able to get this little girl encounter to the best of her knowledge and details when she gave it to me. So the way she gave it to me, I'm going to give it to y'all. Now, mind you, she's still young. So, out of respect, the grandfather asked me not to use her name, and he would not give me the location. So, I didn't try to push and ask him, well, can you at least tell me where it's at? You know, I was just happy enough of him letting the little girl tell me about her encounter. So, without further ado, we're going to jump straight into this encounter. So, I'm going to take you back to the beginning when she had her first encounter. So, Destiny was staying with her grandfather. Now, her grandfather had, small farm. He had animals on there, pigs, chickens. He had horses, and he had a few goats and a couple of cows. So every morning, Destiny said, grandfather used to get up, make her breakfast, they would eat, and then he would go outside and do what he do every day. He would feed his animals. So while Destiny was still eating, grandfather had went out and started feeding the animals. So Destiny says she goes outside. So Destiny walks over to where the grandfather keeps his chicken. And when she walks over there, she noticed when she looked at it, she said that she had saw scratch marks on the side of the chicken coop. And she had called her grandfather over there. She said, Grandpa, come here. He comes over there and she points to it. She said, look. So the grandfather looks at it and the grandfather said, these goddamn dumb animals. And Destiny said, Grandpa, what's wrong? What did that? He said, baby, I don't really know. Must be them goddamn coyotes. And by she young, she didn't know. She let it go. So grandfather said, I'm gonna go ahead and finish doing my chores. You can go ahead and, go play with the dog. So Destiny goes over there and plays with her dog. Grandfather had bought her a Shih Tzu, something that she could play with. So she's over there playing with the dog and, they running around. So Destiny tells, the dog, come on, they walks down. Now she walks down to where he has a barn at. And over in that barn, that's where he keep the horses. So she's over there playing with the dogs. Now, mind you, she said further up from the barn that's when the tree line and the woods start. She said, so while she playing, with the dogs, she said the dog just stops and looks in that direction. And she looks at the Doug and say, what's wrong? What's wrong, boy? And Doug don't say nothing. It's still just looking over in that direction. She said, so when she looks over there, she said she sees this like a dark figure. It's like something just real dark, just standing over there. But she said, by it was so far, she didn't know what it really was. So she looked at it for a few more seconds, and then she went over there, and she rubbed the Doug. She said, come on. So they proceeded, to go back, and they went in the house. So she said she stayed in the house for the rest of the day. She said she had ate dinner, and then she went in her room to go to sleep. Now, mind you, everything is on a one level, So she said she was in there and she was laying in the bed, trying to go to sleep. So she said while she was laying down, she said she started hearing this little tap noise. Tap, tap, tap. Something tap, like something tapping on the window. So she don't pay no attention. She said, but it kept tapping. Tap, tap, tap. She said, so she gets up. She goes over to the window. She pulls the curtain back. And when she pulls the curtain back, all she sees is just something black. She just sees something dark. And then she says she looks up and she sees these two big yellow eyes looking down at her. Now, mind you, she was young at this time. This is when she had her first sighting. She said she see these two yellow eyes looking down at her. And she's looking up at this thing. So while she said she looking up at this thing, she said the eyes started to come down further, 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 like it was kneeling down. And she said it got down to where it could just look right at her. She said, so she's staring at this thing. So when I asked her, I said, when it got down to eye level, what did you see? She said when she looked at this thing in the eyes, she could see that this thing had ears sticking straight up. She said it had a long nose, like on a dove. She said she could see the teeth on this thing. And she said this thing, it did something that just blew her mind. And she said she still had nightmares to this day. She said this thing raised up what she said was a hand. And it tapped on the glass. It tapped on the glass in front of her while she was looking. She said the thing had long claws on it. And she could see that it had a long arm. She said she didn't see the other arm or hand, but she said she seen that one. She said, now why is she looking at this thing? Because she said she couldn't move. And then she said this thing said, come here. Come here. She said, but this thing didn't move its mouth. But she said she could clearly hear this thing say, come here. Come here. She said, so she sets the curtain. She walks out her room, go towards down the hall. Now, mind you, as she's walking down the hall, she got to go past her grandfather's room. So when her grandfather sees her walk past, he gets up out of his room, walks out in the hallway, and he asks her, Destiny, where are you going? She said, oh, I was going to go get the dog because he outside. Grandfather said, no, he's not. He's in the front room in his cage. Go back to bed. She said, okay, Grandpa. She said, so she go back in her room. She gets in the bed and she's lay down to try to go to sleep. She said, but she kept hearing them tap sounds. Tat, 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 tat. She said, but she ignores it. She said, finally, it stopped and she goes to sleep. So she said the next day, Grandfather said, Destiny, I know that you made a to-do list, because she said she would always make a to-do list during the summertime of things that she wanted to do. He said, okay, on the to-do list this weekend, he said, we're going to go camping. She said, so when that weekend came, they went camping. And she said when they got to the spot, grandfather set up their tents, one for him, one from her, put the sleeping bags in there. She said while he was doing this, she went to go play with her dog, because the grandfather took the dog just about everywhere she went anyway. So she said while she was playing with her dog, she said the dog would run around, playing like little dogs do. And she said it would stop. And it would stare up deep into the tree line. And when she would look, she would notice and she would see those same dark figures that she would see when she would look and see these things near her grandfather's farm up in the woods. She said, but she didn't know what it was, because it was just a dark figure. She couldn't, see that it was a figure or a head or nothing like that. She said it was just a dark figure, but it was so far up in the woods. So she goes back over there. Grandfather, he finished, putting up their tents. So the grandfather said, come on, let's go. They grabbed their reels, because she wanted to go fishing. That was on her to-do list. So they goes down there because their campsite is not too far from this little lake, So they go down there. Grandfather puts some bait on a reel, He casts it into the waterfall, and he give it to her. So she's sitting there, because he showed her how to work the reel and everything. So she already knew that. So she's sitting there, with her reel in the water, waiting to see if she catch anything. Now she said that after, not that long, she said she started hearing like sticks break on the other side of this lake. She said, but this lake wasn't that big. She said she started hearing sticks break. So she looks over there. And when she looks over there, she said she see this dark figure again. But this time, she said this dark figure is moving in and out of the trees. It would go behind one tree, cross over, go behind another tree. So she looks over there where her grandfather at. She said, Granddad, look over there. Grandfather looks over there. When he looks over there, he don't see nothing. It's gone. So he said, what did you see? She said, something black over there. I don't know what it was. Because mind you, at this time, she never told her grandfather what she saw that night at her window. So she said that it was something black over there, Grandpa walking. He said, black walking? He said, you must have saw a deer, baby. She said, Grandpa, that wasn't no deer. And the grandfather just brushed it off and said, okay, Destiny. So they continue, to fish. They catch a few fish, father put in the cooler, they go back. And the grandfather, he fixed the fish later that afternoon. So it started to get dark. So the grandfather tells her, get ready, go in your tent, and go to sleep. Now, mind you, I talked to the grandfather too. And he said on this particular night, the moon was out. So the area was quite lit up to where they was, camping at. So he went inside his tent and she went inside hers. And they had sleeping bags in there. And the dog, her Shih Tzu, would sleep inside the tent with her. Now, the grandfather said that he had got these tents with zippers on the outside and on the inside. So you could just, zip it down either when you out or on the inside. And they was right next to each other. So grandfather said that he's a hard sleeper, you know, said he could sleep through an earthquake. But anyway, Destiny said she was laying in there, you know, just rubbing on her dog. So she said, started rubbing on her dog. She noticed his head popped up and his ears went up. And she said when his ears went up, she said, "What's wrong, boy? What's wrong?" And it was staring at the front of the tent. And she kept saying, "What's wrong, boy? What's wrong, boy?" So all of a sudden, she said the dog just ran up there to where she was sleeping at, up there near her head, and just laid there and started like pouting, just pouting, you know. So she looked, she said, then she just see this shadow. She said she see this dark shadow come around from the side to the front of her tent. She said, but it's down on all fours. She said it was so big, she thought it was a bear. She said all of a sudden, while she watching this thing, she said she don't know what this thing did, but she said the next thing she heard was these popping sounds. She said then this thing stood up. She said when this thing stood up, it was just hitting the top of her tent. Not hard, but she said it was just hitting the top of her tent. She said then she takes her sleeping bag, pulls it up towards where her nose at and her eyes. But she's still looking at the front of her tent. She said then she see the zipper start to go down on her tent. And she watching the zipper come down. And when the zipper came down, she said she could see these long fingers coming in on both sides, pulling open her tent. She said then she closed her eyes. She said she closed her eyes. Then she opened them. She said when she opened them, she said this thing was over top of her. She said this thing was so close that she could smell the breath on this thing. She said the thing breath was horrible. Said it smelled like something was dead. She said so she closed her eyes again. She said and when she opened them, this thing had left back out her tent. She said she was so scared she couldn't say nothing. She couldn't scream, do nothing. Now mind you, her dog is still up there by where her head at, on the side of her, facing towards that tent, the front of it. She said then she seen that hand coming again. And it grabs the bottom of her sleeping bag. And it starts to pull her slow. It started to pull her slow, like it's pulling her out of the tent. She said then she don't know what made her dog do this. She said her dog jumped on her sleeping bag and it bit this dog man hand. It bit the hand of this creature. And she said that thing took his hand and it swiped and it knocked her dog on the side of her tent, would be on the right side of her. Then it pulled his arm out. Said when it pulled his arm out, that's when she screamed. Ah! She screamed real loud. And she could hear this thing just running away, Grandfather came from out his tent, came over there, looked in her tent, had shined his flashlight, said, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? She said, Daddy, something tried to pull me out my tent. Granddad, something tried to pull me out my tent. So he grabs his gun. He got his gun. He looks around looks in all in the tree line, trying to see if he see anything. She gets out her sleeping bag, goes out there and stand by her grandfather. So he's still looking. And when she looked over in the tree line, she noticed some yellow eyes down low. She hit her granddad. Granddad, look, she pointed over to them yellow eyes. Grandfather cocked his gun and he aimed and he shot. Bow, bow. But you can hear it hit the tree. He said then this thing just started running on all fours deep up in the woods. Now that's the first time that the grandfather seen something. And he asked his granddaughter, he said, baby, what did you see? And Destiny said, Grandpa, I don't know what it was. It looked like a giant dog standing up. She said, and it had long arms with hands with black claws. Now she described all this to her grandfather. So her grandfather said, we're going to cut this short. In the morning, we packing up and we leaving. So that's what they did. Packed up and left. Went back to the farm. So Destiny said that nothing happened for a while. Ain't nothing happened for a while. Every day she would go out, said she wasn't seeing these creatures no more. Now mind you, she said that happened when she was 8, when she first seen these creatures. She said, but she did see this creature again, but it wouldn't happen till she was 10. So she said one night, the grandfather, he took her out, you know what I mean? They went out, ate dinner and stuff, and they went back home, you know what I mean? So she said she goes in the house, get ready for bed. She say she laying in the bed, like she always do. But this particular night, she said something just made her feel uneasy. She said she felt like something was watching her through the window. But she didn't see nothing. But she said she was scared. She said she just got that feeling. She said because she would start feeling like that every time this thing would come around. So she said she laying there and she said she dozed off, falls asleep. She said, but something woke her. She said when she woke up, she sat up in her bed, she rubbing her eyes. She said when she stopped rubbing her eyes and she focused in, she looked towards the window. And when she looked towards the window, she could see a dark shadow standing there right by that window. But she don't get up. She just sit up in the bed, staring at that dark shadow. So all of a sudden, she said she heard these little footsteps run down the hall. It's her dog. Dog come in there and it jumps on the bed. When the dog jumps on the bed, it focused straight to that window. And it start barking. And when the dog start barking, it wakes the grandfather. Grandfather get out of bed, comes in her room, and he asks her, why is that dog in here? Why is he barking like that? She said, Grandfather, something outside my window. I think it's that thing again. Grandfather goes over there and he pull the curtain back. Grandfather don't see nothing. So she said, Granddad, can you sit in here until I fall asleep? So grandfather sit in the room until she falls asleep. She finally falls asleep. Grandfather said he goes back in his room, goes back in there and he watch TV, So Grandfather said while he was sitting in there watching TV in his room, something triggered his motion lights outside. So he gets up, grabs his gun, he goes outside, and he checked the whole perimeter. He checks, go over there and look at the animals. He don't see nothing. Goes back in the house, go to sleep. The next day, it's when all hell broke loose. He goes out there to feed the animals like he do every day. And he looks at his chicken pen. And it's bird parts and feathers everywhere. The whole screen on this chicken coop is ripped off. I mean, literally ripped off. And he said he had that up there pretty good and nailed up pretty good. He said so it had to be something strong to rip that off like that. And bird feathers was everywhere. Leading all the way across his little small pasture, all the way up to where the tree line at. So, granddaughter gets up, gets herself together, eats some cereal, and she said she goes outside. Grandfather was trying to clean up, the little carnage out there, the feathers, the dead chicken parts and all that was ripped up, heads over here and stuff like that. He was trying to clean that up before she came outside. But she come outside and she sees it. And she say, "Granddad, what happened to the birds? What happened to the chickens?" He said, "Baby, just go back in the house. I'm going to clean this up. Just go back in the house." She said, "I want to help, Granddad. I want to help." He said, "No, go back in the house." So Destiny goes back in the house. She goes back in the house, and looks at TV. Grandfather said he cleans up, the feathers and, the parts of the dead birds and stuff like that. He fixed the chicken pen back up and everything. And he said after he did that, he went around and he checked on all his other animals. And he said he had went over there to where the pigs at. Now, mind you, he didn't have a lot of pigs, but he had quite a few. And when he went over there and he checked on his pigs, he noticed that one of his pigs had scratch marks on his hindquarter. Scratch marks. Like something was trying to just grab this pig. It had 4 distinct scratch marks. And then you could see a 5th down lower from the 4th ones. Now, the grandfather know that what his granddaughter told him she saw had to be this thing that was doing this to them chickens and them pigs. It had to be. So the grandfather goes in the house, tell the granddaughter, "Look, I want you to stay close to me as you can when you out here. I don't want you wandering off or nothing like that. I want you to stay close to me." So she said, "Are you okay, Granddad?" Grandfather said, "Yeah, I'm okay. I just want you to stay close to me. Because I believe you. What you told me you saw, I believe you, baby. I believe you saw what you saw." She said, "Granddad, I would never lie to you. I saw that thing. I saw that thing more than once. And I would never lie to you." This is what she telling her grandfather. And she's real emotional when she telling him. And mind you, she's still young. Telling them this. And when I got this encounter from her, because I wanted her to do it so bad. I wanted her to tell it. But the grandfather said she's still having nightmares about these things, man. And she young. And she might be messed up for the rest of her life or for a long time. But I'm glad that she opened up and she told me about her encounter so I can share it with y'all, man. Because now, this lets you know they don't have no pics of who they see or who they show themselves to. Just like when she told me that thing tried to grab her out the tent, no telling if he would have got out there, you probably would have never be hearing this story. It would have just been another missing child. That's what it would have been. And like I said, man, I'm so grateful to do what I do because I love doing this. I love sharing these encounters to let people know that these things is real. They ain't no joke. You know, I still have little visions about my encounter when I seen mine. But I don't have the nightmares. I used to, but I don't have the nightmares no more. You know, so I'm just glad that I could help people and that they share their encounters with me so I can tell it to y'all, man. And like I said, man, I'm just grateful. I love what I do. I love what I do. And if I could help anybody, I would. You know, and I still talk to that grandfather and that little girl to this day. You know, just to ask how she doing. Have she seen this creature lately? You know, and the grandfather say that she ain't really been going outside. She just been staying in the house. And if she do, she stays so close to her granddad, you know, that it's like she can't get lost because she right there by his side. And you know, and that feels so good just to hear that, you know. So that was her encounter. Like I said, I was happy to get it from her. You know, I did want her to tell it, but, you know, out of respect what the grandfather told me, that the mother, you know, she didn't feel comfortable with her telling the encounter because she wasn't there, because she wanted to be there. But she was called back in, you know, back overseas because she's in the military, you know. So out of respect, then I was just happy enough just to get her encounter so I can share it to y'all, you know. But like I said, I always ask my eyewitnesses of what these creatures look like. She said, and these are her words. She said when she saw this creature, she said the head looked like a dog head with them pointed ears. And this thing had arms with hands, with claws. And she said she could see the teeth on this cryptid, and they was long. And she said they was sharp because she could see points on them. She said she seen the uppers and she seen the bottom ones. She said like they wouldn't fit in his mouth because she would always see the teeth. And I asked her, I said, did you ever see the legs or the feet? She said she never seen the legs or the feet of this thing. She said all she would, you know, when this thing would run, she know this thing was running upright on twos. And when she seen it standing up on twos outside her window and in front of her tent. So she knew that this thing was standing upright on two legs. Like I said, as always, I hope y'all enjoy that encounter. If anything that I can do different that y'all would like for me to do, just send me a message or email. Let me know. And maybe I can do it. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, do so. Soon I'll be getting a PayPal up. So when I do, I'll let everybody know. But until then, just enjoy the encounters that I put out for y'all. As always, hope you enjoy that. And I'm getting ready to upload this and tell y'all another encounter. Good night.